Culture.
It started with Musk slamming the president's so-called big, beautiful bill since he left his position with the administration just last week.
Trump and Elon Musk, who were once very tight, had a massive falling out over Trump's so-called big, beautiful bill.
The president threatened to kill government contracts associated with Musk companies, while Musk shared a post suggesting that President Trump should be impeached.
While most commentators are focusing on the dramatic feud between Trump and Musk, few are actually focusing on the substance at hand. A spending bill that actually contradicts the Trump campaign promise to cut government overspending.
The president wants this whole bill on his desk to be signed by July 4th. Rand Paul has raised alarm about this adding to the debt and also adding to the deficit, and has said that he's not going to vote for this bill.
The math doesn't really add up. One of the things this big and beautiful bill is it's a vehicle for increasing spending for the military and for the border. It's about $320 billion in new spending. To put that in perspective, that's more than all the DOGE cuts that we found so far. So the increase in spending put into this bill exceeds the DOGE cuts.
Unfortunately, in all the noise, cooler heads, like that of Rand Paul, are proving to be prevented from prevailing by the culture, the Trump administration, and the Democratic Party.
So here's a quote from the president. Rand votes no on everything, but never has any practical or constructive ideas. His ideas are actually crazy, losers. The people of Kentucky can't stand him. This is a big growth bill.
Also, all hell breaks loose in California.
We saw a car set on fire. We could see protesters with Mexican flags setting that car on fire.
After the state refused to turn over information regarding who among illegal immigrants are the most high risk, in keeping with California's pledge to protect illegal immigrants whether they're legal or not, the administration took it upon themselves to raid areas in California where illegal immigrants are known to most congregate. This prompted a protest that got very violent and led to Trump dispatching National Guards. Media pundits, upset by Trump's decision, speak out.
What is happening tonight is unprecedented. Let's start with there's protest, lawful protest, which is allowed in this country.
Lastly,
Donald John Trump has given evidence of the absence of the gospel.
Is Jamal Bryant the new Martin Luther King?
This marks the 70th anniversary of the Montgomery bus boycott. For the last 20 years, there's been a noticeable absence and a deafening silence from the Black church at large around social issues.
Since Jamal Bryant believes that Target's poor performance last quarter was due to his so-called boycott, he is now rallying the social gospel Black church to tune their focus on Dollar General.
We have hereby officially canceled Target. You are a history maker, a world changer, and you are defying what is happening in a fascist society. Next up is Dollar General.
We'll talk about all this and more right now on Cutting Through the Culture.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Cutting Through the Culture. I am one of your hosts, Keisha King Benton. We got quite a lot to talk about tonight. So make sure you hit that subscribe button, hit the like button, share this out. As I have a hot flash. Y'all know, if you've been watching the show, y'all know me and these hot flashes have been going at it. But it's not the topic for tonight. Trump versus Elon. So here's my quick, brief take on this. I haven't actually been watching a ton. Of course, I've heard, all the hubbub and stuff going on. But I feel like this is not, if I remember correctly, Trump had some kind of, provision. He was like, okay, let's just get this bill to September or October, which is, I think, is the when new budgets come out. And so he was like, let's just get this to this point and then let's fight about all the other stuff. And in my mind, I thought that was okay. Like, I want to focus on China. We got Elon doing the Doge stuff. Like, let's go ahead and do that. But because there's so many things we want to cut and do, let's just basically solidify these tax cuts, because I think that was Trump's kind of like main thing. I think his looking at it is a little bit different. I mean, I don't know. I'm not an economist, but I think it's pretty funny and crazy watching the two most powerful men go back and forth. And I just on a personal note, with not personal like that, but Elon's personality, his like how he handles things, I don't think he's handling this one appropriately. Anyway, those are kind of like y'all already know what I think about Jamal Bryant. Anyway, let's bring up to my good friend, Mr. Teach 'em Chuck Littleton. What's up? How are you?
I'm doing well. What's up?
I'm good. I'll tell you. So I just got off the phone with Microsoft. So I was going back and forth with them for about an hour and a half. So I'm trying to calm myself down.
Oh boy.
And yeah. So I'm like Elon, like all of these right now, like I really don't care because I'm pissed about my email not working.
Oh my goodness. Not working.
Okay, you want to charge me, but you don't want to. They want me to wait 72 hours to change my password in 2025. Okay, that's what I.
So you can access your
Get
emails?
someone to help me change my password. How crazy!
You got to wait 72 hours to get somebody to help you change your email so that you can access your email account and read
Correct.
and send emails. Wow.
The person I called, he let me know up front. He's like, I'm a support advisor. I'm not actually like tech support. I know I'm like dumping this all on you because it just happened.
Well, what did the person was it an American? Was it someone with an American accent? She's like, now you know, of course it wasn't. Ma'am, I'm trying to help you. I don't know. I'm just here for support.
So first of all, he told me the wrong information anyway. I ended up figuring it out and I actually got to change my password myself. I've been dealing with this for 2 days, mind you. So I figured it out. Talking to him helped me figure out the part that I was missing. Oh, yes, Jesus loves you. I am done with Microsoft. I'm going over to Google Business. I just got to figure out how to set it all up. But anyway, 72 hours just to change the password on a business account. So Microsoft, y'all, he's like, oh, we're so backed up. I said, yeah, probably because this is what you're making people wait 3 days to change a business password. You're going to be backed up for that, boo. Okay. Anyway. Let's talk about Trump and Elon. What do you think about this bill?
Well,
this big, beautiful bill.
Well, yeah, I second what you said. Trump wants to, of course, cement the continuation of his tax cuts, his tax reductions,
right?
Because they're set to expire, and of course, we will all see a tax increase if this bill doesn't pass. It's one of the major issues. Of course, a lot of people in the media are reporting the fact that there was some cutbacks on EV subsidies and these kinds of things. So people are making it out like, well, this is some personal that's stuck in the craw of Elon Musk, because he's sort of like saying to himself, or saying quite loudly out loud, saying, pretty much, how could you, do this to me when you have all this other pork in this bill, but yet you're essentially, kind of biting the hand that feeds you. It's the hubris of Musk that really sort of turns me off, because it's like you're not the president of the United States, and he's not really beholden to you just because you feel as though, quite fallaciously I might add, that if not for your support he wouldn't have gotten elected. I don't believe that. But nevertheless, there's a lot back and forth here, and I can see a person making the case for either side. But the problem is bigger than these two men. The problem is bigger than Trump even. The problem is the way in which the federal government functions, the way it conducts its business.
Mm,
Musk doesn't understand that. And the fact
that
of the matter is that we can talk as much as we want to about wanting to decrease the deficit and cut back on the spending and the borrowing and so on and so forth. But the reality is that, yes, that may sound, what is the word a lot of people are throwing around nowadays? Mandate, right? Popular mandate,
mhm.
right? And it may seem commonplace to those of us here in this particular political ecosystem, but you'd be surprised that most people couldn't care less. The problem is not Trump. If you look at our legislature, look at it. The Republicans barely control both chambers, right?
Exactly. And
If you,
quickly, I think that's another part that Elon doesn't understand.
he
He
does
doesn't
it.
understand that it doesn't matter how fervent you believe in something. If you don't have the votes to get it, what is the
You
point?
don't have, yes, you don't have the votes. You don't have the votes, and if this bill doesn't pass, the reality is that I am of the belief that the Republicans get shellacked in the midterms if this bill doesn't pass. If taxes increase,
Heck yeah.
if they, I mean, that is, I mean, what was it? What was it? The old campaign slogan of Clinton back in '92? It's the economy, stupid. And
Mhm.
if, the Republicans go into 2026 with a poorish economy or a lagging economy, they're going to get shellacked.
That's true.
And I get the fact that when you look at the numbers, Democrat Party registration is increasing. It seems as though the Republican Party is increasing quite vastly in its popularity, due in large part to a lot of the social issues that are resonating with people. But Trump, I don't think he can afford to take a risk of this bill not passing. And someone like Rand Paul is he's farcical, if you will, to use a term Jordan Peterson used to describe Candace Owens. Rand Paul is a grandstander. It's not that I don't agree with some of the things that Rand Paul has to say. Of course I do. But oftentimes, Rand Paul is simply in the business of making Rand Paul look good, right? He wants to seem as though, he's standing on some kind of principle, when in fact, Rand Paul has been in the Senate for years. And I do understand that he's just a senator from Kentucky. And you may say, well, certain things are out of his control. But if you want to really, if you're serious about getting the spending under control and getting the federal government under control, then, Mr. Paul, why don't you use your bully pulpit, if you will, to push for an Article 5 Convention of States to try and push for the ratification of a new amendment, if that's what you really want to do? Because the reality is that it doesn't seem as though the people want it. And the federal government, the federal Congress, more specifically, it's not going to change itself. It's not going to reform itself from within. That's not going to happen. Right. And that's why we'll probably get into this later, this idea of states' rights versus the federal government, so on and so forth. The power, of course, the states being the ideal representation of the will of the people, the states have to get the federal government in check. And that begins with transforming and mobilizing at the state level and change the political makeup of the state legislatures so that perhaps we can push for, in my humble opinion, an Article 5 Convention of States. This idea is championed by the likes of such men in the national media like Mark Levin, who I agree with wholeheartedly on this issue. There's a lot. There's a lot here. And I guess I'll let Blanche chime in. But this is one of the key things one of the key issues that split the country during the Revolutionary War. Not the Revolutionary War, I'm sorry, the Civil War period. A lot of people may not want to hear this because, of course, this was coming from the wicked, evil, slave-holding, slave-trading South. But they foresaw this. They saw this coming. And if you read the Confederate Constitution, they put in their Constitution measures that would try to halt or at least keep the growth of the federal government in line with the growth of the economy. And one of the key things that they did was, in order to curb potential out of control spending was they gave the president of the United States line item veto power, which is something that our president does not have. And so, because, the courts have deemed it unconstitutional for reasons, because they believe it to be a violation of the presentment clause. But again, that's something we could probably get into later. But the reality is, Keisha, that a lot of people, when it comes to spending, they don't care. They don't care. And that's not on the politics.
You don't feel it. You don't feel it immediately.
Right. That's not on the politicians. That's not on Trump. That's not on anybody. It's not. The people do not care. They think this thing will just go on like this for perpetuity. They do not care. The Democrats have never seen a budget, an out of control budget that they didn't like. And Republicans are too afraid to do what is necessary because they are afraid that it will cost them elections. And I think they're right. I
agree. Let me bring up Blanche and see what he thinks about this. Hey, Blanche.
What's up, Keith? What's going on?
You heard my rant about Microsoft. But how are you?
Doing well. How you doing?
I'm good. I saw your live earlier, or I don't know if it was a live or pre-recorded on what were you talking about?
Simone.
Yes, Simone. I thought it was really good.
Terrible.
What do you think about Trump though? Trump and Elon.
I mean, I think it's theater. I just think that Elon Musk is not really a politician, so he's just, and so if I don't know, it's kind of like it's just entertainment, because what does Elon Musk? I mean, what is his stake in all this anyway? Like, what does he even care? Like, and so going after Trump, I mean, what is he really saying? I mean, I know he was talking about the spending portion of it, but my thing is, everybody's talking about spending. Okay, so what do you all propose? Like, what do you all propose to you not liking the spending of the bill? All I hear is people saying they don't like it. Okay, well, tell me what you don't like specifically. At least Marjorie Taylor Greene said she went through and said what she didn't like. At least she articulated, this is what I don't like about this bill. I was looking through the bill today trying to find, what everybody's talking about. I've looked through, I listened to people talking about, I'm just going through the bill. I'm like, well, first of all, there's no way y'all went through all of this, because I'm going through this thing for about 2 hours. I'm like, there's no way y'all did. There's no way. So again, I just think that Musk was like, he has leverage with the dumbed down public, because you go against Trump, you're automatically going to be popular. You're automatically going to be seen as somebody that cares about the people. You're coming to your senses. You're the Republicans are having an inside. Like, it's just a bunch of drama and nonsense. But my question is, what do you all propose? Like Chuck mentioned, Rand Paul's been in politics for how long? And this spending has been going on since we've been alive. So what do you propose? Like, what do y'all propose is done? Like, are y'all willing to go through this entire bill line by line? No. Are you willing to go through all of these pages and dissect them? And no, you're not going to do that. So my question is, what do you propose? If Trump as a leader bowed to the wishes of every person, nothing would get done. There has to be a point where a leader says, I'm gonna go with this, and then I'm gonna deal with how the chips fall. That's just how life is. So he can't keep stopping and doing this to appease Rand Paul on this end and appease somebody else on this end and appease the dumbed down public. It's too much. At some point in time, a leader has to say. Now, what I find funny is when Joe Biden was signing those executive orders, nobody had nothing to say. Wasn't nobody concerned about budgets. Wasn't nobody concerned about Joe Biden went on a tear and nobody said nothing. They didn't question nothing. Joe Biden was mumbling up stuff and it was clapping. So again, I just feel like a lot of this stuff is just, they want to pick something to be upset about. And I'm going to say this again, the deficit that the country is in has been around for years. So my question is, y'all have been here this entire time. So where are you all's proposal to what we need to do? It's different if y'all come and say, this is what we suggest. Y'all are just saying we disagree. Mm-hmm. Go back to the drawing board. We disagree. Go back. No, what do y'all propose? So,
and they want Trump to fix. They want Trump to fix it all in 4 years. I mean, that's kind of unfair.
Yeah,
Also,
Keisha, I mean, we kind of talked about this last week as well. I mean, what can you do, right? I mean, everybody, living in a representative republic, living in a government, right, or a country governed, right, by the people, for the people. You're going to have to live amongst people you don't like. You're going to have to live amongst people who do not believe in the same things that you believe in. They aren't going to act in the same way that you wish them to act, whether it be in public at times or whether it be in the privacy of their own homes. That's just the way it is. And we're going to have to deal with liberals, people who are left of center. The Democrat Party is a thing, and it will continue to be a thing for the foreseeable future. And that's just the way it is. A lot of people are upset and angry because part of the bill, it doesn't cut back enough on a lot of these Green New Deal items and incentives and so on. But like I said in the beginning, Keisha, and I think you said it as well, that the Republicans have too slim a majority in Congress to play around if they do not get. And you notice how the right side of the aisle. And keep your thought, Keisha, because I'm about to be finished here. If you notice, the right side of the aisle, the political right, if you will, is filled with so many different. I mean, you have your folks who are, your conservative religious types, you know what I'm saying? You have your more libertarian types. You have your more, I guess, sort of secular conservative types, your more sort of philosophical, classical liberal types, all on the political right. And there always tends to be this, for better or for worse, right? And this is a situation where maybe it's for the worse, because, in theory, like we have these highfalutin, high-minded ideas about how we think things ought to go. But theory is theory, but politics is the realm of reality. I'm sorry, I know it hurts Elon Musk's feelings, and this is the dangerous part about politics and just about governing a country in general. Politics is about reality. And the reality is that the Republicans do not have the power in Congress to engage in these wholesale changes, and they don't have the power yet.
just don't have.
And that's because the voting public, it has not, for whatever reason, bought into whatever conservatives are selling. And I know that there are a lot of different conservative voices saying a lot of different things. But the fact of the matter is that there's still a lot of liberals and there's still a lot of Democrats.
Plus,
and you got to.
They came into the Republican Party, so we're not even. There's not even a consensus in the party.
Right.
On this thing. And I get, and this is something
that I deal with them,
because even locally, like when you are, people have different districts, but in some concerns, this is like the beauty and the, I guess, ugliness of our republic. But you got a group of Republicans, but their district is more liberal or more moderate or whatever. And so their job is literally to fight for what they want.
It's us, Keisha. We're the problem.
Understand, like, you might have people, just because they are a Republican, you cannot expect them to go against their own constituents like that they have to represent. And I don't think Elon understands this bottom up.
Politics is different.
Yeah, I don't think he understands that in a real way. At that, I'm not trying to be insulting.
No, you're right. You're right.
To discuss this. Oh, and I wanted to ask you guys, and I'll ask Chad this too. Do you think this has anything to do with his electric car deals? Do you think it's more about that or him being pissed? Let me bring up our fearless leader, Mr. Chad O. Jackson. How are you, Chad? Can't hear you.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah, you sound a little like far away.
You are really?
Mm-hmm. It doesn't sound like the mic is picking you up. It sounds like something else is picking you up. Maybe.
Yeah.
Is that better?
All right, turn it up now. Sound like the volume low.
Is that better or no?
There it is.
It's better.
You say it's not better, Keisha?
It
No,
is.
it's better. It just doesn't sound like your mic, like your main mic, like you're right in front of the mic.
Can y'all hear that?
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
Now you're good.
Good.
Okay. I mean, it's been on the thing. I don't know what's wrong, but anyway,
It's good, man.
So I hate to be the contrarian in light of what Chuck and Blanche were saying, and I don't know. Maybe we should have played the clips in their entirety to kind of give them context. But I think for me, I wouldn't say that Rand Paul is grandstanding. The fact is, we have 100 senators. And as such, each senator, to Chuck's point, brings different philosophies, different priorities, such and so forth. And I think it's clear what Rand Paul's priority is. I think it's clear what his philosophy is. And when it comes to, this kind of government run amok in terms of spending, he is against that. And this is why he's making a decision, or has made a decision, to vote against the bill. I don't think there's anything kind of unique about that. And now we could argue over, well, if you're really about, cutting spending, if you're really about kind of changing the course of action, then you would call for a convention of the states. I understand all that. But at the same time, as we have in the clip that we might play later on, I think he makes it clear that, look, we got an estimate for what it will cost to build this wall, and it comes out to somewhere around $6 billion. And in this bill, Trump is calling for $46 billion. So, $40 billion, where does that come from? Like, what's that going to? And not only that, what they're proposing to spend actually outnumbers what we were able to cut by way of Doge. And so it's a very simple fact of, the spending piece kind of going against what a lot of us assume Trump to be running on, namely, this government waste, fraud, and abuse, and just overspending with money that we don't have to spend, which again is a point that Rand Paul, I think, made eloquently. Another thing that I'll add to this is, when it comes to the whole Elon Trump thing, I'm not as concerned about that, because yes, there is conflicts of interest. There is ulterior motives on the part of Elon, in terms of him having government contracts, so on and so forth. And so you can only, take that as far as you can take it. But for me, I think it distracts from what I think is most important. This sense of urgency that I understand Chuck and Blanche to be kind of tapping into and saying, like, well, if we don't pass this bill, then taxes are going to go up. That's not going to go over well for us in the next election. For me, I'm not thinking about it so much on a political terms, in terms of like, this kind of Machiavellian, not to dismiss what Chuck and Blanche is saying and the legitimacy of what they're saying by besmirching it as Machiavellian. I'm just using that term kind of like to signal this kind of like, well, we have to make compromises and do this, that, and the other for the purpose of winning the next election, winning the approval of the people, so on and so forth. For me, I tend not to go there. I tend to go more into a kind of Barry Goldwater way of thinking, namely that we in the Congress can stand to go slow. We don't always have to jump with this sense of urgency, because, we only hold a slim majority in Congress, or, if we don't do this, then AOC could possibly come in. And if we don't do this, and like, at what point are you actually going to stand on principles? And for me, I thank God that we have people like Rand Paul and have people like Massey in office just stand on principles. Yeah, it's a losing battle. And yeah, to Chuck's point, when you consider the fact that most Americans don't care, well, at least we have two people in the Congress who are showing some remnant of caring. And so I would just hope that people would just kind of, I don't know. For me, I spend so much time on my platforms. I spend so much time with the films I'm making, trying to educate people, trying to get us back to some understanding of what our country is supposed to be. And then to have a better approach to the way that we vote, the way that we show up in primaries, the way that we hold elected officials accountable. And most importantly, not putting all of our stake in what goes on in politics, because we have it within ourselves to do for ourselves, and not be so inextricably intertwined with what goes on in Washington, D.C. But to the extent that we have a Washington, D.C., to the extent that we have elected officials, you would hope that they would get back to some remnant of the Constitution. I understand politics is a dirty game. I understand that it's a cutthroat industry. I understand you have elections to win. I understand all that. But sometimes it just takes doing the principled thing, calling out the pork, calling out what you see and how this contradicts what Trump did and how Trump, and this, like sometimes it takes doing that from the seat of a senator in order to remind at least those who are willing to listen, like we're not where we need to be as a country. And so for me, like I'd rather Rand Paul get on the news, go on Face the Nation, go on Meet the Press, go on all these other shows and express what it is like and why it is he's doing the things that he's doing. I'd rather him do that. You can call it grandstanding or not. I'd rather him do that because at least you are communicating to those who are willing to listen that where we are in terms of republicanism, in terms of a country in general, we're so far removed from what we ought to be in terms of, our Constitution.
And
so one quick note on the like.
Let me jump in before you move on, Keisha. After you're done, let me jump in.
I'm not moving on. I just want to. So Trump has gone out and brought in revenue, and we've made cuts, and then we have spending. So I think sometimes, and I'm not saying you're doing this, Chad, but sometimes when we see the cut, and we don't always calculate. I'm just saying, like just like regular people, the revenue that's coming in.
But Rand Paul acknowledges that though, and he gives credit. He gives credit where credit's due. Again, it's in the clip. He gives credit where credit is due in terms of acknowledging the fact that Trump closed. Because of Trump, we don't have people pouring over the border. Because of Trump, we were able to make cuts. However, we're taking steps back by adding $40 billion to what. To the estimate that we were given, which was $6 billion. We don't need to spend this money we don't have. I don't see how that's hard to comprehend. And I'm not saying that Chuck doesn't comprehend that or Blanche doesn't. I'm just saying, like in general, like I don't know. That's just me though.
All right. My question is, who are the folks? And I can't name them off the top of my head. I probably couldn't name one even. Well, anyway, who's on the House Budget Committee? The folks who considered this bill. I think I don't know his name. I think it was Republican from the state of Texas, Chad, your home state. I think authored this bill, and it went to it originated in the House if I'm not mistaken. And it went through committee, and and we are where we are now. Like Chad said, and I at the same time, I totally understand where Chad is coming from, which is why he and I, Chad and I have talked privately, just in joking about politics and tossing around this idea of would either of us ever run for office, and this is one of the things, and this is probably one of the reasons why he and I are both like, nah, not for me. Because I think, like I said, I agree with what Chad is saying, but I guess devil's advocate would say, well, it's easier said than done because, or Chad can afford to say such a thing because Chad is not a politician. And I do wonder, I do wonder when you talk about the wall only costing $60 billion and there's $46 billion in the bill and so on and so forth. I just question, why is it that you cannot seem to get Republicans on the same page if fiscal conservatism is supposed to be a major plank of the Republican Party platform? I just don't understand that. And I've asked Chad in the past, how he felt about a convention of states. I think when the past, Chad, I think you said you were in favor of it. I know you said that it's one thing to, and again, I understand where Rand Paul is coming from. I don't dislike Rand Paul. I do think sometimes Rand Paul is solely all about Rand Paul. That's just my humble opinion. I definitely wholeheartedly disagree with a lot of Rand Paul's takes on national defense. He's a little bit too squish. He's a little bit too much of a squish for me when it comes to national defense, too dovish for me, as they like to say. But I think we need voices like Rand Paul. I do appreciate that. I just it all boils down for me, and I just want to say this to kind of extend an olive branch to Chad, because I do understand what he's saying. But I do think that it really boils down to the public in our percent. And we can talk about how we got here, and that's a whole other can of worms. But public perception, folks don't even, I mean, talking about, Elon Musk said that Trump's name is on the Epstein flight list, and this grabs people's attention, and this is what they're talking about. But yet, and still, if you were to ask the average person, do a man on the street, and ask them to explain in the simplest way possible what Article 5, what Article 5 Convention of States, and how you can amend the Constitution through a convention of states, as opposed to having it instigated by 2/3 of both houses of Congress, and then going to the states for 3/4 of votes amongst all 50 states. They probably couldn't explain it, but everyone has a ton of speculation about the nature of Trump's relationship to Jeffrey Epstein, because Elon Musk put out a tweet. But how many have ever read Article 5? And even that's my whole thing. It's just this dumbed down American people, because I firmly believe that there'd be no way for the federal government or state, whatever, to even get away with this for as long as they have gotten away with it, if we had a people that were informed and were virtuous and actually cared about what was really going on. That's my whole thing, man. I mean,
I agree with that.
sad. It's sad.
Yeah. I want to respond. I agree with what Chad said about the spending part, because that is alarming. I didn't even see that in the clip, but if the proposed budget for the wall was $6 billion and they come back and say now we need $46 billion, I mean, you have to ask the question, well, what is the $40 billion going to? Is it inflation? Like, why is the building materials costing so much now for the wall? So I do understand that. I'm just saying from a standpoint of that there's going to have to be a time where you have to just say we're going to do this, and you're not going to satisfy 100% of the people. And one thing I know is about Trump, everybody's itching to disagree with what he's doing, and it's just a trend I've been seeing for the past 10 years. It's just no matter what he does, there's going to be naysayers. So I'm like, even if he goes right now and appeases every single body in the Republican Party about this bill and the Democrats, guess what? They're still going to come back and say, well, what about, like, it's just, so we're going to have to get to the point where we have to do something. Am I saying that we should throw the baby out with the bathwater? No. But I do agree with Chad in that we can't be spending more than what we've cut. We would, like, it defeats the purpose. It defeats the purpose to cut the spending and then add some new spending. And I also understand the tax cuts. I guess what I'm saying is that it is very difficult, in my opinion, to handle affairs of these matters, to be in a position where you have to try to appease the public. You got to try to do what's right morally. You got to try. There's a lot of people you got to try to please God. I mean, it's a lot of people you got to answer to just on something simple. And to Chuck's point, the average person really doesn't care. They don't. What they want is sensationalism. They want to be entertained. They want to be emotionally appeased. I just spent a couple of days with my family, on both sides of my family, and it was just what I had to endure was similar to torture, worse than Chinese water torture. But it was torture. But I do want to say I do agree with Chad in that I'm a person that's a stickler to detail. And if you're telling me that something costs something and you come back and say, I'm like, no, where's the money going? So I don't know about Rand Paul personally. He's spoken in the past and I've agreed with him on some things. And again, everybody's right once or twice in their life. So I don't know about that. But I will just say it's a tough decision to make. It's a tough decision for Trump. Anybody doing this is a hard decision. And it's difficult, especially where we are, where you're trying to correct something that's been done. You're trying to move the country in a certain direction. It's never going to be pretty. It's never going to, I don't even know how you even do it. I've never even seen somebody try to shift the country from this to this in a matter of months. Like Trump's been in office since November. Like we've never even seen somebody try to do all this stuff in 7 months. So it's like,
But
go ahead.
I would
go ahead.
argue, though, Blanche, though, that I think once again it comes down to principle, and somebody in Washington D.C. has to have it. Trump is a savvy businessman. He's proven to apply those skills when it comes to his presidency. However, he lacks in the department of principles. Let me not say that so, I guess, bluntly. I think when it comes to degree, I think somebody like a Massey or a Rand Paul have more principles than does Trump. Now, you could argue that, well, Trump occupies the executive branch, whereas, Massey and Paul, they are senators. Therefore, they don't have as many responsibilities as the president. So he has a lot of things flying at him at once, whereas Paul and Massey has a luxury of being principled. And even me, like, I have more of a luxury than Paul and Massey of being principled because I'm a private citizen. So to Chuck's point, granted, I have the luxury of saying certain things, but even still, I think that you need that pressure from the more principled, cooler heads in Congress, like Massey, like Paul, to push back against what Trump is doing in terms of where does this, at least explain where the 40 billion comes from, at least explain that number. I think Trump owes that to the constituency of the types, of the Massey types and the Paul types, versus firing back on social media. Oh, that's why nobody in Kentucky likes you. Like, what is that? What is
That's
that?
Trump.
I know it's Trump, but at the same time, it's
No,
like,
I'm
this
not
isn't a
excusing it.
game,
I'm not excusing it. I'm not excusing it.
Right.
But we can go back to the 17th Amendment and say what was that about? Because I mean, a lot of these senators, we can pose the question. I mean, how beholden to their states, the states that elected them, are these senators in the first place? When senators were sent to the federal Congress through the state legislatures, I think that was closer to the concept of republicanism than when we embrace this, how we elect our senators through popular majority in each state. I disagree with that, but I don't know. I mean, who's the Republican whip in the House right now? I don't even know at the top of my head, but I don't know where is the strong, where is the leadership in the Republican Party right now. I mean, especially in the Congress, both chambers.
And can I say just one thing to piggyback off it. So I just want to say this: Donald Trump, if we think about our lifetime, just name a president that has been held accountable more than Donald Trump. To me,
Right.
the interest of even what we're talking about is only because he's literally being held by both sides. He's being held accountable by Republicans and Democrats. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I'm saying in our lifetime, when have we seen a president held accountable by not just Republicans and Democrats, but also the media, also the person in the barbershop, also the person on the corner? Like, everybody is holding Trump accountable. And I'm just like, well, my goodness, like, y'all didn't do this for nobody else got this kind of and I remember Obama, I remember Bush, I remember obviously Biden. I remember nobody was holding these folks this accountable. And guess what? I'm not saying it's bad. I'm simply saying that if we had been doing this years ago, we wouldn't have had this problem now. If all these presidents have been under this kind of microscope that Donald Trump is on, Obama wouldn't have got a second term. Like a lot of stuff wouldn't have happened. But the fact that it's just Trump, I know it's kind of like, I don't want to say they picking on Trump because that sounds crazy, but I'm just saying it's just like he's the poster child for who we're going to hold accountable. And it could be, to Chad's point, his responses, how he talks, because he is so brash, because he is so bold, because he is so blunt, he almost forces people to have a reaction like that to him. But I'm just saying, I just want to say this, Chuck, I haven't seen anybody being held this accountable as a president.
Yeah, I mean, he getting arrows from everywhere.
My little stint in running for, I don't even call it running. I ran for my local party leadership, and that's a very small. I mean, it's a big election, especially for Jacksonville, because we are a big part of the electorate. Like, people look at Jacksonville for numbers and stuff like that because of the way our city demographic is made up. but is it, it's a big deal, but it totally opened my eyes to people can agree with you. I agree with Rand Paul. Like, I don't want more spending. I don't want it, but I also understand that Governor Keisha, yes, Governor. No, actually, no, y'all. But I do understand when you're having to take in consideration the people, because honestly, my opinion on this is if we had a better um educated populace, then we wouldn't actually have these squishies or people who would be the populace. They would be electing people who would be going in there to actually make change. They wouldn't go with the one that just has the R by the name, or this is the one that I've seen the most commercials on, or this is the one he's been in there for all this time, I'm just gonna go. And like, we don't, our populace is so disconnected. That's how we work. We're a bottom up. So if these people get elected, their job now, the moment they get elected, and I'm saying this from people that I know that have gotten elected, and they're, and I'm just talking to them and asking them, like, what's going on, the party starts preparing them to run for the next election. Like, it's so many parts. It's not just, oh, I want to run, and then there's a lot of parts in getting somebody elected, and all of this other stuff. So it's not as easy. It's very easy to be a contrarian and just say, oh, I don't like it. I'm not. You're already in office. Your vote or no vote, when people start to consider who they're going to vote for, those people who are really paying attention, if you don't vote for anything, that is actually what a lot of politicians try to do. They try not to vote because it doesn't hold them to anything. So if their constituents start to move, they don't want that record of voting to come back to haunt them. So it's a lot of different things. You don't know. Who knows? Like, it's not.
Keisha,
I wish it was better, but that's a lot of the times.
So I don't often quote movies. I know I know whenever Jericho Green comes on the show, he's bound to quote at least 5 movies or reference at least 5 movies.
Classics.
There's something about folks in who served in the military who like they're just huge movie buffs. I don't get it, but I will reference a movie for the sake of this conversation. Have you seen the movie Mr. Smith Goes to Washington?
I haven't.
No.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so Mr. Smith Goes to Washington is a film that was produced, I think, in the 1930s, 1940s, and it's about this kind of young, impressionable guy who's like a statesman. He's like a man of the people, and he's elected to. Well, he's not elected. He's basically a shoe-in for to take on this role as senator, but the powers that be, the funders who put him in the office, they did so because they felt that he would be the most controllable because he didn't have any experience in politics or what have you. But what he did have was this kind of high view of the role of senator, this high view of America and the founding fathers and so on and so forth. So he gets in there thinking that he's going to do something positive, and what he finds is a lot of gridlock. What he finds is a lot of, I guess, tumultuous kind of, sinister power grab, more so than an interest in really being a government for and by the people. And I feel like, anyway, I don't know. I was going somewhere with that, but I completely lost the plot. So that, I guess, I just betrays my.
I was saying, being
fatigue
elected
and sleep. Yeah. That I guess that betrays my fatigue and lack of sleep over the past few
years. We're going to quote the movie.
What was the quote?
I lost it again. I lost the plot. But
so my question
go ahead,
my question is, what population have we seen that is informed when it comes to politics? Then we always throw this term around like the uninformed populace, but where have we seen it? Where have we seen it?
Okay. I think I know where I was going, and thank you, Blanche, for that, because, and I would like for you to ask the fullness of your question. But for me, it's like when it comes to this, so the problem that Mr. Smith was dealing with when he was trying to make good positive change in Washington, D.C. was that lack of education, was this fact that the populace allows the government to run amok because these are these are our elected officials. They know best, they know better. But I think what he signified was this kind of like, no, let's get back to the brass, like let's get back to the roots, like let's get back to what we are meant to be as a country. And so I feel that like that has to start somewhere. Like we can spend every Sunday talking about this kind of stuff. You all can do it on your own individual platforms. We can, be mouthpieces and advocates for common sense and how, like, and critical of, again, a government that's run amok. But at the same time, I just don't quite understand how, when it comes back to the rubber hitting the road, when it comes down to the rubber hitting the road, it seems like a lot of conservative or Republican commentators, I'm not saying this is you all, but it's something I see quite often, is when it comes down to it, when it comes to a bill or when it comes to a piece of legislation, when it comes to a executive order or decision, a lot of conservative commentators kind of tuck their tail between the legs, abandon their principle and say, no, we should just go for this. We should just, it's this urgent thing. And I guess what I'm critical of, or what I'm advocating against, is exactly what Barry Goldwater was advocating against in his own time. We don't have to move so fast. We can go slow. That's the beauty of, I think, American politics in terms of the checks and balances that we have. To the extent that we move so hastily and so urgently, we end up in the same mess. And then it becomes like a thing where every situation is urgent. Every situation is a problem. And to Rand Paul's point, and I don't know if we're going to play the clip, because we've been talking about this for like the last 40 minutes, but to Rand Paul's point, you have to have somebody in Washington, D.C., like that Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, who is going to use their platform to, in a sense, raise awareness and say, look, this is a principle that I'm standing on, because it's better than compromising or punting the responsibility and say, for the sake of urgency, because in so doing, you're not raising that education. And again, I'm a private citizen, but to the extent that I'm on platforms, to the extent that I'm making films, like I'm trying to do my part to raise that education, because I don't know that there is an answer to your question, Blanche, in terms of, where have we seen an educated populace before? I would say that the only time that we saw something close to it was when you had limited, when the so-called right to vote was very limited and very restricted. That's the closest that we've ever come to it. To the extent that we open up the floodgates and let everybody and their dog vote, you're getting further and further away from an educated electorate.
We asked the question last week about Christian nationalism versus democracy, and we didn't really get to unpack this term, democracy. Maybe we can do that for another show, but I just want to piggyback off what Chad just said. Democracy, dem, people, populace. When you look at the etymological origin of these terms, it really all boils down to what does a collective, this first person plural that eventually becomes a country, how does it define or classify or characterize what a citizen is? Once upon a time, children, women, slaves, right? These were not citizens. You had to be a man in order to be a citizen. You had to be, and then from there it went on, and you had to meet certain criteria in order to be a citizen, because like Chad just said, you have to go back some time, hundreds, maybe even thousands of years before you can get to this, folks who understood. And that, this was now maybe not thousands. I'm probably being a little bit exaggerating there, but, when you had movements in France in the late 1700s of universal suffrage, everybody believed that, well, I should have a say as well. It's like, no, you don't. And see, now, you have a lot of folks, even now, who consider themselves to be right of center, would say that, well, as long as you're 18, or maybe they're even in favor of increasing the voting age, they may say, maybe you should be 21 or 26, or maybe you can go as high as 30. Who knows? But I don't know if you were to do a straw poll or whatever, how many conservatives are actually in favor of restricting voting, right? Even to adults who are fairly competent, it would seem, and fairly sane, it would seem. You know what I'm saying? We even talked a couple of seasons ago, we had a show about women and should women be given the right to vote? Like I said, once upon a time, women were not citizens, neither were children, neither were slaves. And so, but it's that, yeah, that's progressivism for you, right? I mean, Chad said that, of course, he was conjuring up the attitudes of Barry Goldwater, and this was the attitude of the framers and the founders. That's why they created those co-equal branches, in order to keep the society stable, because they wanted the gears of change to churn slowly, because of course people get swept up in their passions. And when you had the progressive movement really began to speed up by the early 20th centuries, this is why the Constitution, especially if you read the writings and listen to the speeches of one Woodrow Wilson, who literally said in so many words that the Constitution of the United States was the enemy of progress, because the Constitution is built in, is written into the language that puts a stop, puts a halt. It makes change and makes things difficult. And it's supposed to be that way. And because once you arrive at a certain place, right, it's damn near impossible to go in the opposite direction. And no matter if a person is Democrat, Republican, whatever, it's almost everyone to a man when it comes to the government, particularly the federal government. The phrase, the mantra is always, the government has to do something. Even people who vote Republican, by and large, the government, the government has to do something. The government is just like, does it? I mean, take your hands off the thing for a second. Time out, right?
I do want to play this clip. I want to hear what Rand Paul said, just to refresh my memory.
The math doesn't really add up. One of the things this big and beautiful bill is it's a vehicle for increasing spending for the military and for the border. It's about $320 billion in new spending. To put that in perspective, that's more than all the DOGE cuts that we found so far. So the increase in spending put into this bill exceeds the DOGE cuts. When you look just at the border wall, they have $46.5 billion for the border wall. Well, their current estimate from the CBP is $6.5 million per mile. So if you did 1,000 miles, that's $6.5 billion, but they have $46 billion. So they've inflated the cost of the wall 8-fold. There's going to be a lot of extra money. Look, the president has essentially stopped the border flow without new money and without any new legislation. So I think they're asking for too much money. And in the end, the way you add it up to see if it actually is going to save money or add money is how much debt are they going to borrow? $5 trillion over 2 years. Enormous amount.
The president has taken note of some of your skepticism, and he did tweet yesterday saying that if you, Rand Paul, vote against his massive border and tax bill, the people of Kentucky will never forgive you. Do you consider that a threat? And do you know if you have 3 other Republicans who will join you to block it from passage?
It's worth people remembering that the Republicans used to be for lower taxes. Tariffs are a tax. So if you raise taxes on the private sector, that's not good for the private sector. If I vote for the $5 trillion debt, who's left in Washington that cares about the debt? We will have lost. But the GOP will own the debt once they vote for this.
So the two places where Trump has increased the spending is the border and the military. 2 places where he has been extremely vocal that that's what he wanted to do. You know what I mean? And I don't know the details. I haven't read the bill. Like I said, I've been paying for it. I don't agree with all the spending. I just think that sometimes when you're trying to unravel something that is a cluster, okay, like I think some on the outside, and y'all, Chad, whoever disagrees with me, may just have more insight, may know more of it. But when you're looking at it from the outside, sometimes the things that you're doing don't make sense to the people that are looking at, that are watching you do it, when you've got this massive thing that you're trying to fix. And I think it's a lot. I think it's very difficult. And I think it's easy to judge, to be looking at this like, oh, he's wrong, he's right, he's, whatever you're, it's like Blanche said from the beginning. Okay, if I was looking at a freaking what's our deficit right now? How much is it?
It's just,
Trillions of
about a
dollars,
couple of dozen.
billions of dollars,
Trillions.
the debt is trillions, the borrowing, the spending, all of it, and people are looking to you to fix it. Like there, and your what, I don't care what solution you come up with, even if Trump did not decrease, even if he didn't make, even if he didn't increase it, people would still, guaranteed, they would still be complaining that he's not doing it the way that they should be doing it, and he didn't cut enough, and why is it, so I feel like I'm just giving him a minute to kind of, let's see how this goes. I don't know. It's a huge mess. It's such a huge mess that it's like, sometimes if I look at my own life and I try to kind of mirror, something similar, it can look crazy on the outside when you're fixing a problem. It can seem like you're not fixing the problem when you really are. Just people don't know all the different details. I don't know, but that's my high level.
36 trillion dollars.
I mean, stimulated. Thank you. I got a new computer. First of all, my internet is doing well, and I got an extender. It came with a little like extender now. So yes, my Wi-Fi should be right, and I got a new mic, so I should be all good. But anyway, let's see what else.
Keisha's making that YouTube money. Were you about to say something, Chuck?
Y'all go keep scrolling.
I totally understand. I totally understand where Rand is coming from, especially when he says that, well, if I abandon the post, then who's left in Washington? Who's left in DC that actually cares? I don't know. It's tough. I was really responding to his last comment when he said that if we pass this, the GOP is going to own the debt. They'll own it, and I hate to sound petty. I mean, this sort of goes beyond partisanship at this point. But it's funny because he's right. He's right, and in all this time, I mean, at least the Republicans can say, many of them tried to pay lip service to it. Perhaps they tried to just loosen the reins on the economy a little bit, that maybe we can grow our way out of this economically, which is virtually impossible given everything else that they've done. But it's funny that Rand is so right, because he knows that the Democrat Party has this, I would call them a sycophantic media, but it goes beyond that at this point. I mean, the media, the national media and the Democrat Party are so joined at the hip. They're essentially one entity. And, and that's why when you hear all this talk about, cutting these unfunded liabilities like Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, Trump will be the first. Trump will trip over himself, just to make sure that the listening public knows that he has no intention on going after Social Security, and all these Republicans, they're so afraid of the media. They're so afraid of academia. They're so afraid of, and it's a shame, Keisha, because again, these folks, who are their constituents, right? Who do they have to answer to? Who's putting these people in office? A lot of these Republicans are so terrified of being looked at as the party or the person who hates the poor, or the person who wants to starve the children, and The media takes these things and just runs with them. And for the life of me, as sure as I'm sitting here, I scratch my head and I say, I don't understand how people can't see through this BS. But for reasons maybe we can get into on a later show, but they believe it.
The
They
media
believe
is
it.
powerful. I mean, if you got somebody pounding I have seen this locally. Where the person that is being honest but doesn't have the money to run the ads gets
Right.
pounded by the liar who's got the money.
Right.
And they get that, like, they spending money, ad after ad after ad. It is people, it can change the mind of people. Like it's not a simple, like, oh, I'm gonna run and then I'm gonna, because I got the best idea, I'm gonna win. Like, unfortunately, it's just not like that.
And a lot of people, Keisha, are saying, well, the Republicans can't afford to look disjointed right now. They have to display and put forth the united front. If they feel like they can't, remember they had the whole thing when they, ousted, I'm forgetting the name of the Speaker McCarthy, when they ousted him and brought, and then Jim Jordan was a good guy, and Jim Jordan didn't, and I happen to like Jim Jordan, or at least I used to. I haven't really been keeping track of much of him lately, but Jim Jordan, and he didn't make it, and I guess perhaps he was a little too radical for the more moderate or liberal public. I don't know, and it became this whole fiasco. And you got Marjorie Taylor Greene, who I think is another. I'm not too fond of Marjorie Taylor Greene. I know a lot of people in MAGA, whatever, quote unquote, love her, but there's that, and it's just. And people say, well, we have to, or else, once again, we'll lose votes. They're afraid of Democrats because the Democrats are so. Given the fact that it is a radical, revolutionary communist party. I know that was redundant, just said the same thing 3 times. But yes, I mean, they're so solidified and unified.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, the Republicans are sort of damned if they do, damned if they don't. But it's a shame. And he says that the GOP will own the debt. And people will believe it, although it won't be true. You know what I mean? It's bigger than just this current Congress, this current administration owns the debt. Now, it's far deeper than that, but people will believe it.
They
Just
will.
like
They
believe
will.
anything else.
Shit. You were the last person there. I mean, you were the last person there. The debt went up, so therefore you're responsible for the whole thing. Like, it's that simple to people. Like, the person that's in office, they tank the economy. I'm voting for the other guy. Like, we don't think that deep into, into these things. Like, that's not happening. And that was my point. Like, once you get deeper into this, like, it's really hard to get people to think about this. Our country was literally invaded for 4 years. Now, like, it's so invaded that the media couldn't even hide the invasion, and we still have a slim majority. Like, that should show you that people do not. It could be literally your country's about to fall off a freaking cliff, which we were and are, in many respects, and people still will be like, "Well, I just want to," So it's so easy to, and Rand Paul, like, there's no term limits in Congress, so he can go up there and say whatever he wants to say, pretty much. I mean, people are still voting for Mitch McConnell, for crying out loud. Okay, so I mean, I just don't. Yes, we want the politicians. It's like we're kind of talking to our country is a bottom up. It is a we the people, but then we're looking to the politicians to basically not honor. Let's assume that they got an office honoring the things that people wanted to vote for. But here's a vote, and they're like, no, because my people wouldn't want this, or they would want this, and this. What do? Do you disregard the people? Or do you?
Well, the bottom line, Keisha, I hear what you're saying, but for me, like, where I would disagree is I'm not going to criticize Rand Paul for bringing up what I believe to be very legitimate concerns that I share. Because if he just kind of, again, capes and tuck his tail and just go along to get along because we need a GOP victory, To me, I would look at that as cowardice. I would look at that as like, well, dude, what are you doing? So for me, I'm not going to say, hey, just be quiet and let Trump, like he has a plan. Let's just trust the plan. And I'm not saying I'm not saying you're going to that extreme, but for me, it's like, I'm not going to criticize Rand Paul's criticism because I share in that criticism. And sure, somebody could say, well, Chad, like you're a private citizen, therefore you have the luxury. Like Rand Paul, he's not winning any favors or any, brownie points for doing what he's doing in terms of going against this bill. I think that he is adding the pressure that he has within his branch of government to say, look, we have a slim majority. I'm not just going to give you my vote unless you begin to get rid of some of this pork. I think he's right in doing that. This is the slow turning of the gears, as Chuck put it earlier, that we need with our checks and balances. We can't just be rubber stamping things. I get it.
I agree with Rand Paul. I'm just talking about the political part of it. Because when they're voting, they're not just thinking about the bill. They're thinking about getting reelected. They're thinking about their constituents, which they should be. They should be thinking about those people, their people. Me personally, I do agree. We are spending too much. Like I agree, but like I said, I don't know all the details. So it's easy. What I was trying to say, I guess I wasn't articulate. It's easy for me to agree or disagree from here. Because I don't know all the details and, whatever. But when you're thinking about it like politically, I don't know if Rand Paul is, I don't think anybody's like that. Not just Rand Paul. Like, I don't think anybody's like, oh, well, I don't care if I don't get elected again. Like what I'm saying. He's saying things that he knows people like to hear from Rand Paul. I don't think he is, I wouldn't say grandstanding, but I don't think he's doing, I think he's being, that's what we're accustomed to that. Like it's we're not shocked that Rand Paul and Thomas Massey did not vote for a bill that had more spending. I get it. I probably wouldn't have either, but politically it's probably a lot different.
It's because there are two different conversations here, right? It's two different conversations being had. We're looking at Rand Paul and we're saying, is Rand Paul right to stand on principle, stand on business, stand 10 toes down, whatever the cool kids are saying nowadays? Is he right for doing that? I think all four of us are in agreement that Rand Paul is correct in his assessment of what is taking place, right? That's, and on the other hand, because, Rand Paul, he'll say something. Especially, he's always been extremely, hawkish when it comes to these budget issues, right? He's the same Rand Paul that'll say something 1 minute, you love him, sounds great, and then the next minute he's saying, in my humble opinion, he's saying something that sounds completely kooky and ridiculous. That's just my assessment of Ron Paul. I don't hate Ron Paul. I'm not saying he's a bad senator. Like I said, I think you need personalities like Rand Paul in politics. Somebody earlier in the chat said something about his father. I really didn't care for his father too much, but anyway, but I think we're having a conversation about what Rand Paul, is he right in doing what he's doing? And the other conversation we're having is we're just looking at the machinations of this entire process dispassionately and almost as though we're sort of withdrawing. We've withdrawn from it. And we're just sort of observing it as it is taking place and simply describing what we're seeing. Well, why is this happening? And why is this bill on the cusp of passing? And you got Trump and going back and forth with Elon Musk, and you got this and we got that. And we're all just simply saying, this is just politics as usual, right? But that doesn't necessarily mean because it's politics as usual that we should continue to do it in the same manner in which we've been doing it, even though we know it's wrong. And so, I think that, my stance as I play this out, listening to everyone give their thoughts and opinions, and I think I'm giving more sympathy to Ron Paul than I was initially. I think, Chad has won me over a bit, and listening to Rand Paul kind of explain himself a little bit more because I hadn't seen that Face the Nation a clip. But, again, I do kind of understand where the other folks are coming from that are just, again, simply doing this as a means of, political business, so to speak, which is not a which is no excuse. I mean, you have to pick decide who you're going to serve, right? Decide which master you're going to serve, and eventually, when you meet that fork in the road, you got to go left or you got to go right. And so I get that. I understand that. I really do. But unfortunately, I'll just end it here before I know if we going to get into these riots in LA. But I just don't know if the people, as of right now, I'm not sure if the people care enough.
Can I just
I just don't know.
And in that clip, I agree with what Rand Paul said. I don't agree with the part about the owning the debt part, but I think he meant that we would be, I guess, responsible for the continuing of the debt. But owning the debt is ridiculous because we came into the debt at 36 trillion. So there's no way that can be owned on one president's term. But I do agree with what Rand Paul said. And I do also believe that people like Rand Paul are necessary because you have to have balance. So you can't have everybody just agreeing with Trump. Even you have to have people disagree with Trump just to make everything balanced. Even if it may sound ridiculous or whatnot, we can't have everybody just agreeing with everything just because we want to see something happen. So I do agree with Rand Paul. I don't know his intentions, but based on that clip I saw, I agree with what he said. He didn't say anything that really sounded that like wasn't a really common sense take. And, I just agree with Chad and really all of you all. I think all of us care about the fate of our country. And I think for us, we don't mind accountability. But I will go back to what Chuck is saying, that folks really don't care. They really want what they want at the moment. But to Chad's point, we do have to be pragmatic. We do have to slow walk this thing. Like we can't give in to, this knee-jerk reaction to people wanting to see something or not liking something, or we got to kind of stay the course. And so I don't know. I think the Rand Paul clip in context is a lot better than what I was just hearing about what he said.
Donald John Trump has given evidence of the absence of the gospel. Within 72 hours of him taking the helm, being the most powerful person on the planet, 24 companies walked away from the African American community. We actually believed that Target was our friend. We invited them to the cookout. You know that you're a part of the family when we give you a nickname. The nickname for Target became Target. For the last 20 years, there's been a noticeable absence and a deafening silence from the Black church at large around social issues. And this marks the 70th anniversary of the Montgomery bus boycott, when Rosa Parks refused to give up her seat, and for every night for 381 days, African Americans and like-minded conscientious believers stormed into churches for prayer, for direction, and for grounding. I took that blueprint and said to the body of Christ at large here in America, soldiers, it is time to put boots on the ground. And over 200,000 people rushed to Target fast and said, we're going to stand with you and we're going to stand with New Birth.
Well, and Chad, is there a way we can put that, like where we can start and stop that clip? Because there's I feel like we need to break that down.
You can make us all one, put us all on the side of the screen, like 4, and then put the video.
Yeah, I don't have the video. It's not in my, it's not in the, you know what I'm talking about.
We'll do that. We'll do that next time.
Okay. Well,
I'm trying to keep the show under 2 hours, so I don't want to.
Okay. So he said in the beginning that he wanted to. I wanted to get what he said actually. He said he felt like the church was not. No, he said that Donald Trump has disregarded the gospel or something. What?
Proof that the gospel doesn't exist? Is that what he said?
Let me play just that part one more time. It's right at the beginning.
Donald John Trump has given evidence of the absence of the gospel.
Okay, I don't know. Donald Trump has given evidence of the absence of the gospel. I don't understand what that means. What does that mean, Chad?
That
Well-
Trump doesn't believe in the gospel.
Well, what he said immediately after that is that 72 hours after Trump took office, 72 corporations pulled out of their 2020 pledges to DEI initiatives, to racial reconciliation, this, that, and the third. And that because Jamal Bryant, believes that that DEI and that anything having to do with race progress is in keeping with the gospel. Because Donald Trump stands against DEI, he's anti-gospel. So that's basically what Jamal Bryant was saying.
Gotcha. Okay. So because Trump doesn't believe in social justice stuff, he doesn't believe in the gospel. That's his criteria of judging if you are a Christian or not, if you believe in the social gospel. Is that right?
Exactly.
Okay. So we know he's not a real Christian. I'm glad he said that, because now we know what you judge being a Christian by, and by that means you're not a Christian, because that's not how you determine what a Christian is. That's not how you determine the gospel. If somebody's preaching the gospel, that's not how you determine it. It's not how you determine anything about Christianity, whether or not you are a social justice warrior. Okay, I just wanted to.
Well, I don't believe that Trump is a proponent of the gospel. But
I'm not saying that he is. I'm saying that Jamal.
Yeah, I was gonna say, talk about pot calling the kettle black. I mean, your whole church is devoid of the gospel. Like, what are we talking about?
Thank you. But honestly, I think Trump is more in line with the gospel than Jamal. I don't even know if I was about to say, I don't even Trump being saved. I don't know, but I would venture to say that Trump is more in line with the gospel than Jamal, and that is saying a lot.
When Trump has spoken about the Bible and Jesus, he's never wavered. So you can say anything you want to say about Trump, but he's kept the same consistent message about the scripture and Jesus and everything. Jamal Bryant is the one that talks absolutely insane about the gospel. And when he said that Christ was in error for 85% of his life, like, Jamal Bryant has been blasphemous when it comes to the gospel. So yeah, I'm picking Trump over.
I guess my position on it, Blanche and Keisha, is I don't feel like I need to, in a sense, and I'm not saying this is you two, but I don't feel like I need to, in a sense, hype up Trump and make him something he's not in order to criticize Jamal Bryant. When you look at the kind of pastors that Donald Trump surrounds himself by, who are heretical, some of whom are wolves in sheep's clothing, I would venture to say that the quote unquote gospel that Trump subscribes to is definitely not the gospel of the Bible. So, like, I can acknowledge that over here while at the same time acknowledging that Jamal Bryant is no one to talk when it comes to criticizing the kind of gospel that Trump does or does not subscribe to. When you look at the fact that New Birth preaches literally a heretical counterfeit gospel. And so for me, it's like, I don't so much focus on degree, because we learn in the scriptures that there's only one name given under heaven by which man can be saved, and that name is Christ, and that there is no other gospel. And so for me, it's like the prosperity gospel is heretical. The social gospel is heretical. This, name it and claim it kind of gospel is heretical. There's only one gospel that's true. And so for me, it's like, I can acknowledge the high position of Trump's office and respect him and believe that a lot of his policies I agree with. But at the same time, I'm going to give, I can give due deference, but at the same time, I don't really take this kind of position that, anyway, I said what I wanted to say.
No, but Chad, so would you say this though? Jamal Bryant is the one that placed Trump in quote unquote the gospel realm, meaning that Trump has never said that he is any type of religious leader. Jamal Bryant said he represents the absence of a gospel. So he's the one that is comparing quote unquote godly man versus secular president Donald Trump. Now,
Yeah, that's fair.
if he doesn't do that, I only have to bring up Trump in the gospel because he did. Like if he just says Trump is a bad guy, we're done with it. But he said that Trump being president shows the absence of a gospel, meaning that these companies basically pulled out because Trump represents the being against DEI. And so, like you said, Jamal Bryant shouldn't even be talking about anything, especially on a podcast. I don't know why a pastor has a podcast anyway, but especially on a podcast where he has his YouTube plaque sitting up there. Like, anyway, on a podcast, he definitely shouldn't be talking about anything that's dealing with gospel or none of that, because he's bringing on literal demons on his show, on that podcast show. So I don't know why he even conflated the two. You should have left that sermon for the pulpit. That makes more sense from the pulpit. But that podcast arena that he's on is pure decadence and damnation. So yeah.
So what was the name of that pastor? Y'all, the pastor that no, not Eddie Long. No, we was having a private conversation
Lorenzo,
before the show. Now I was thinking about the pastor that's buddy with Trump.
The black
one? The guy. Yeah, he was the guy that remember that's it.
Charlie Kirk. No,
yeah,
you're talking about the dude who went on Roland Martin's show.
Your pastor.
Huh?
Yeah, the guy that went off on Charlie Kirk for saying that. Okay, that guy. I could figure out his name. He a trip. He's something else.
I forget his name, but I know who you're talking about. He went on Roland Martin.
That light-skinned dude, you know him.
Yeah, he went on Roland Martin's show to basically blast Charlie Kirk. He went on what's that? That lady who ran for governor in Michigan, Tudor Dixon. He went on Tudor Dixon's show.
Oh,
Charlie Kirk.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, really? I can't remember.
So I missed it. I missed it in the clip. I was going to ask you guys to, particularly Tab, but anybody could have chimed in. I wanted to get you guys' thoughts on the Tea Party movement.
Oh, Daryl Scott.
Scott.
Yes, that's what it is. Thank you, stimulated students. Yes, Daryl Scott.
I had wanted to get you guys' opinion on the Tea Party movement from a couple of years ago, but we're past that now. Maybe another day. But I missed it in the clip. I didn't hear anything about Dollar General. I was laughing because he said we thought that Target was our friend. I'm like, what? Like, why'd you think Target was your friend? What does that even mean? Target is your friend? Like, how so? What is Target?
We gave you a nickname, Tarjay. No, you didn't. We've been calling Target Tarjay way before anybody ever paid attention to a Jamal Bryant.
What is he talking about?
Tarjay forever.
I'm trying to figure out though, like, Keisha, how did black folks think Target was their friend? I guess they felt betrayed by Target. I don't know. Yes. But I mean, the coast is finally clear because all this DEI stuff, it hurts productivity. It destroys. It just ruins. I mean, because the only way to productivity is a meritocracy. It ruins it. And I suppose once the coast was clear, a lot of companies was like, okay, I guess the American people, I mean, they voted for this guy. And so finally, let's go ahead and throw out let's go ahead and get rid of it. But I missed. So what's going on with Dollar General? Why we don't like them now?
I'm going to play it. Let's play the clip.
You're going to like this.
We have hereby officially canceled Target. You are a history maker, a world changer, and you are defying what is happening in a fascist society. Next up is Dollar General. And questions have been coming to me from around the country and around across social media. Why Dollar General? Because they've been hiding in the cut, not being accountable, and not being responsible. What you may not know is what I didn't know. And that is that Dollar General has 3 times as many stores, hear this, of Target and Walmart combined. 21,000 stores. Most of those stores are in communities of abject poverty or rural areas that have less than 20,000 in population. They are predators because they're getting away by giving cheapened goods at a higher price. They are a contributor to the food desert. It is a shame, if not a sin, that Dollar General has not partnered with any black farmers, has minimal black vendors, and in their executive office, only 2% of their leadership is African American. We asked that there would be a reimagining of what it is, hear this, that DEI look like, even if it is under a different name and had a different definition, because we realize that it is under attack and under assault because of this Trump-Musk presidency that's trying to roll back the hands of time.
Hey boys, get the horses ready and get the sheets. We about to have a party tonight, boys.
Oh, my stomach hurts.
We about to have a party
He was a
tonight,
Morehouse
boys.
graduate. He's a Morehouse graduate. What is this word? Did you say onslaught or?
No, he was trying to say onslaught. He was trying to say onslaught.
Oh,
he said
but he used it wrong. But yeah, he was trying to use onslaught.
Okay.
He's
But he
putting
said
all
it wrong,
that
too.
on the
He said,
back of.
Anyway, I think he is trying to do the new
Hey,
MLK.
Chuck, cheap and goods. It's Dollar General. It's Dollar General. Cheap and good.
It's like the stores are everywhere. It's so many of them. We can really put the screws to them. It's like, because like the whole model is different. They're going to be smaller and they're going to be more stores. Like, it's not the same type of thing. I know they're stores, but they're kind of different. You know, like you don't understand all that.
Make it make sense. He mad because he claims there are too many of them. Too many of them in black areas. What? We need to get rid of the.
And there being too many of them. There being too many of them is what's contributing to the food desert.
What?
Like how? Like how do you math that? Like how does that math make sense at all?
You need less stores because we have
We need to
less
take them out.
food stores because people have no food. That makes
Get rid of them.
Liberal sense.
First of all, can we be honest? People buy things from Dollar General. They're not grocery shopping at Dollar General. Like what are we talking about? They're not grocery shopping at Dollar General. Stop.
They taking up space or something, bro, where the grocery store would otherwise be. Out on the garden. I don't know. They taking up real estate. I don't know what they doing.
Well, the thing is, like, so I mean, the question tonight is Jamal Bryant the new MLK? And the answer to that question is a resounding yes.
Absolutely.
One of the things that MLK did is he created issues where there was no issues, or where there wasn't an outcry. He's creating an outcry where, like, how often do you hear people who live in rural areas crying out that they live in a food desert? I mean, if you live in a rural area, chances are you maybe have a garden, maybe you have a farmer's market in town, you know, maybe you barter or something. But there is, like, where is this outcry from people who live in rural areas that we live in a food desert? What Jamal Bryant is doing, once again, is in keeping with the civil rights industry that was popularized by the likes of MLK. And it's funny because, you know, to ask the question, is Jamal Bryant the new MLK? For a long time in this country, since the assassination of MLK in '68, that question was floating around often. Is it Al Sharpton? Is it Jesse Jackson when he was running for president in the 80s? Is it this person? Is it that person? That question has always been out there. And the consensus from a lot of folks is nobody could fill Martin Luther King's shoes. That's always been the consensus. Even T.D. Jakes, during, I think it was the 50th anniversary of the I Have a Dream speech, something that happened. He gave a speech and basically put that same question to his audience. And he said, you know, some people have suggested that I am. Some people have suggested this person is. Some people have suggested that person is. But truth be told, his shoes can never be filled. My hope is that by the time people watch our new documentary, that they will realize that all of the people mentioned, the Jacksons, the Sharptons, the Bryants, like, yes, they do fill MLK shoes. They're not lofty shoes to fill. This high image of MLK as being a deity, of being enshrined, it's all based upon lies. It's all based upon myth. It's all based upon manufactured narrative. Y'all have made him larger than life, and that's why you believe his shoes are too big to fill. No, he, like, the same kind of conniving and fraudulent and sinister stuff that Jamal Bryant is doing. King was doing those same exact things times 10. And so for me, like, that's not a lofty position to fill. And I hope, once again, that the documentary that we're coming out with this summer or fall, whenever it's completed, that it would basically put an end to this kind of high view of MLK, which is basically a lie. And so where I would basically compare someone like a King and a Jamal Bryant is that one of the things that they do for this purpose of, to the point that Chuck makes in the documentary, of basically abusing the system, abusing our checks and balances system as a kind of slow burn towards socialism and then subsequently globalism, is they kind of bring awareness and they kind of pinch grievances and create grievances where there is no grievances, so as to sensationalize the public, to use the kind of the franchise power of the people to push for something that is anti-American. And that's exactly what Jamal Bryant is doing. And once again, it's in keeping with what MLK was doing.
What do you guys?
And by the way, real quick. So to the question of, because I mean, I know we were joking about, like, oh, there's too many, like Jamal Bryant said, there's too many Dollar Generals that's contributing to the food desert. Well, what he means by that, just to kind of give it context, is that in a lot of these rural areas and these areas where there's so-called abject poverty, a lot of these individuals that we have in Congress has passed legislation that allocates funds to remedying the so-called food desert. And so there's money that's available for a grocer to come in and set up shop. And so what Jamal Bryant is arguing is that Dollar General is basically cashing in on those funds as they spring up stores in these particular areas. And in so doing, taking advantage of those grants and that funding that's available. And what Jamal Bryant is saying is that Dollar General, because they're, grabbing all the cash, should, in a sense, peddle that cash to Black farmers, to Black vendors, by allowing these Blacks to sell their goods in Dollar General, to sell their produce, if you're a Black farmer, in Dollar General. So that's basically what he's saying. And he's also saying that, money should be allocated to Black grocers in these areas. But to me, like, again, what he's arguing is a very pie in the sky thing. When I went to Baltimore, for example, and I was, when we were making Uncle Tom 2, and I was interviewing people on the street, like doing man on the street interviews, they were complaining that, this part of West Baltimore is a food desert. And I asked, well, I know for a fact that there's grants available for grocers to come in and set up shop. Why not some entrepreneur here locally take advantage of those grants? To which the consensus that I got from the people on the street was, well, we know that as soon as we open up a store, it's going to get robbed. People are going to steal off the shelves. So even the people in Baltimore know what it is when it comes to, at least Dollar General has a corporate funding, if need be. So too does Walgreens and CVS, to put up, plastic kind of cases and shelves so as to prevent loss from occurring. Whereas somebody who's just getting their feet, under them and starting a grocery store may not have the luxury of paying for such a thing. And so for them, it's just not worth it. And then too, the insurance that you have to get, of course, an insurer, knowing that you're setting up a store in this particular location where there is such a high loss prevention based upon the records that they keep in house in these insurance companies, they're going to either charge you out the wazoo or just not be interested in insuring you at all. And so this is a problem that comes down to Black culture. That's really what it boils down to. For somebody like a Jamal Bryant, who's the leader of a mega church in Atlanta, which is supposed to be the so-called Black Mecca, for you to be speaking not to the Black culture that gives rise to, the reason why you even have a food desert in these areas in the first place. You're speaking to the corporations and trying to put the onus on them to, in a sense, go against their bottom line to accommodate the decadence of Black culture. It just doesn't quite work that way. You would think that someone like him would be smart enough to know that.
I mean,
I wonder.
my question is, so you go to the Black farmers and you're getting produce from the Black farmers. So what's the price point in the store? It's only 1.4% of farmers in America are Black. So my question is, what's the price point? If Dollar General said we're going to partner with farmers, what's going to be the price point in the store? I'm not going to Dollar General to buy lettuce for $12. I'm not going to Dollar General to buy eggs for $20. So I'm like, what's the price point? And another thing about a food desert, I find it very ironic that Black folks are the most obese in America, but yet they live in a food desert. How's that? How are y'all so obese, but you live in a food desert? So where are y'all navigating to find this food where there's no food? Are y'all, is it magic? I'm just trying to, so again, Black folks find a way to be obese when there's no food around. Just make it make sense.
That's what I was going to ask, Blanche. That's what I was going to ask. This loaded term that people just, I mean, it's a propaganda cudgel. It's just one of these words, these phrases, terms people just throw around. Because what are you intimating? What are you trying to say when you use the term food desert? What do you mean? I mean, are you saying that people local to the community don't own their own businesses that, provide foodstuffs for people to consume? Is that what you're saying? I know you're not saying that. I know you're not saying that people in these areas are starving, because if that were the case, then the reality of such a thing would be obvious. You look around, you see people, they're obviously not starving. They're eating something. They're eating something. So what are you talking about?
Because food desert, that's a very
it's a loaded term
that you can like that is a
really
very it's a great term for communists, because you actually picture it's a desert. I mean, and your mind, especially a woman, your mind is gonna go to all the poor little kids who do not have food. And I've heard this term, like when this term first started to come around, I'm like, what is this? And I was seeing people come, they were going to Congress and advocating, for their communities. We have food deserts, but that's what they want people to imagine. Just lots of people with no food.
Well, another term they use,
do you know how much
is.
I was just going to say, y'all. Go ahead, Jay. Go ahead.
I said another term they use is.
Go ahead.
I said another term they use is underserved communities. Have you heard this one?
Yeah, that's one.
The good old underserved communities, the disadvantaged communities.
Well, which it implies that these so-called communities are entitled to be served, and the question is by whom? Again, that's such a loaded socialist term, underserved communities, as if the people who make up the community don't have the wherewithal, the limbs, the determination and ability to do for self.
Exactly.
A community, again, you would hope won't be a burden on outside communities, that they would provide and hold their own. That's what you would hope. But no, this term underserved community, it goes unchallenged. It's adopted by both Republicans and Democrats. And it implies this kind of belief that we should do more to serve the so-called underserved communities. It's a sham.
Who determined that these people were underserved in the first place? Like who let's start there. Like who said that I'm underserved? Because when they started telling me that my kid was oppressed because they Black and she walking around here with $1,000 cell phone in her back pocket, you can don't do that. Like who determined that they were underserved in the first place? I'm so curious, because I bet if you were to go individually to those people in that community and say, hey, do you feel underserved? They would be like, probably not.
And it's funny, Keisha, when you look at the underserved and all this stuff, and they talk about the lack of income and they look at all the economic disparities, but they oftentimes skip over the amount of resources that are the amount of resources put into these communities. And we know of this because of the amount that goes out, the things that they spend, the amount of economic activity. It surpasses what we are being told by the statisticians and these experts that they actually earn vis-a-vis their employment and all of these other things. And so when people make these claims that, well, the rich aren't paying their fair share and this, that, and the third, it's like, no, they're feeding those people because they're spending more than they're earning. So as you go down the economic rung, it flips, it turns upside down, it kind of capsizes, and you wonder, where in the heck are all these poor folk who you claimed are underserved? Where in the heck are they getting the money from to spend on clothes and food and all types of amenities and video games, toys, the latest Jordans, whatever the heck they're spending their money on? But you're telling me that they aren't earning anything because of some system of white supremacy that's, keeping Black folks away and other minorities away from these economic opportunities. It's all a lie. And, I thought about something too with Chad. It's just this whole thing of farmers, and that people have no idea the amount of food and stuff that we waste thanks to government mandating the production of certain crops that we end up that don't make it to market, things that don't get purchased. The government has to buy it up and find something to do with it. You talk about waste and taxpayer.
Restaurants not even being able to give away their food.
Taxpayer.
At the end of the day.
I'm just talking about just how the farmers were able to. This goes back 100 some odd years ago. Even I saw a long time ago, Blanchett was doing a live stream and he was playing a clip of MLK talking about how farmers are being looked after by the federal government and trying to use this as an excuse to say, well, Black folks deserve this and that because the government did it for farmers. And I'm thinking to myself as I'm watching Blanchett's live stream, and I'm like, yes, the federal government did this to the detriment of these farmers. And there was a lot of legal back and forth. There were questions about the constitutionality of this in terms of it was a whole lot. So the government, I don't even have time to walk through it, but the government has gotten involved with our agriculture sector to great calamity. If you don't know the history of it, and it's still going on. They have made a mess.
Not only that, Chuck. And not only that, Chuck, but to I guess to add to what you're saying, specifically as it relates to Martin Luther King. Yes, it was to the detriment of the farmers, but not only that, MLK was actually lying because Black farmers did benefit from those regulations as well. It wasn't just white farmers, so he was actually lying, as MLK was known for doing. This is why J. Edgar Hoover called him the most notorious liar in the United States.
Isn't it crazy how, Black some Black Americans will be like, oh, well, this is what the government did for white people. We want it too. Not even taking the next step to see like, well, what was the outcome of that thing that they did for these white folks? Like you just jumping on it because the government gave it to white folks. Like it might not have benefited them very much, but it doesn't matter. Like none of
but that Keisha was the magic of the civil rights movement. That exact rhetoric. They did because what it started with the FDR administration and all of the socialist policies that he pushed. The narrative was that white people are benefiting from this, not Black people. And so the question or the conversation should have been around the constitutionality of these policies to begin with, and then two, what was the actual effect or the defect of the policies. Rather than asking that question, the civil rights leaders jumped immediately to Blacks didn't get to benefit as much as whites. And so in so doing, when you use that rhetoric, you're validating the existence of these policies instead of rightfully challenging the existence of these policies. And so because people latched on to this rhetoric of, how come we haven't benefited from this? Or how come we don't have access to this? It becomes a clamoring for access, thereby increasing the deficit, increasing inflation, increasing all of the other detriments of pushing such legislation to begin with. And so the civil rights leaders they gave validation, because that's the thing, to the extent that blacks or whomever were left out of these policies, it kind of had the aura of exclusivity. Oh, this is an exclusive thing. It is legitimate. Everybody needs to get in on this. And so the social justice kind of charge became, how do we get as much access, as much exposure to this thing? And so anyway, that's kind of like the many of the twists and turns of the civil rights movement. That's one of them that I think is important to pay attention to.
For sure. We're getting close to time here, Blaine. We want to address this comment by Conspic Mom. Correct me if I'm wrong, but food desert means that there aren't any healthy options available that are affordable and are not around.
I hear that too.
But
that's not how it started, though. It started
Right.
as literally there's no grocery store in town, and then as people began to acknowledge, well, no, there actually is grocery stores, the goalpost then got moved further down as like, oh, there's no healthy food options. So yes, that's the latest, greatest definition. But that's what happens with these words and this verbiage. It constantly, kind of like racism, it constantly changes the definition to fit a leftist agenda.
Reproductive rights. What the frick is that?
And I would say too, I would love to see a study on when Black people are given the choice at grocery stores to pick healthy foods versus, because the issue is poverty. So if they're poor when they go to the grocery store, then they can't afford the organic food. They're still getting processed foods. The argument doesn't make any sense either way. Either
And then you're on food stamps too, so you're not even paying for it. So why not choose the broccoli?
so again, that's my point. So my point is they're going to choose the bad food regardless of the option or not. And so that's why it's all capped.
Yeah, lifestyle, behavior, so on and so forth. There's no remedy. There's no government remedy for bad behavior. Like and I wrote it down in my notes here when Chad was talking about. There's a lot of these stores, the loss, like I said, the theft and all that stuff. The cost of doing business is far too high in these high crime areas before you can even talk about anything dealing with economics or whatever. You have to deal with the behavior problem, the culture problem. Yeah, you gotta deal with the criminal element. You have to, but folks don't want to.
Blanche, you want to read our super chat?
Oh, yes. Coltrane, what's the name of the book that a Soviet agent posing as a Black writer wrote in the 1920s or 30s about the Black struggle in America? Red Wash Prop.
I think that's Black Like Me, no? Isn't that Black Like Me?
The book that the Soviet agent posing as a Black writer. Well, did this person actually visit the Soviet Union? Because I don't know. I'm trying to think of the author. I don't know who maybe you're talking about, Homer Smith. I'm not sure who you're referring to, but I don't know if I've ever heard of that book. I may have.
Let's see here. Black Like Me by John Howard Griffin. Is that the one that you're referring to? Coltrane. Let's see. On October 28th, 1959, John Howard Griffin underwent a transformation that changed many lives beyond his own. He made his skin black and traveled through the segregation deep South. His odyssey of discovery was captured in journal entries, arguably the single most important documentation of 20th century American racism ever written. More than 50 years later, the newly basically that's the gist of the book. So maybe not the same thing, but same concept. Because they asked about wrote in the 20s and 30s, and the book I was referring to is the 50s.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you, Coltrane. Martin Towns, thank you for the super sticker. Really appreciate it. Robert Lamoa, is a level-headed Democratic Party possible? The core of their ideology is nihilistic collectivism. I don't see how they can be a viable alternative to MAGA.
Well, I mean, yeah.
You just let the American. You just wait. Let Americans get a hold of something, boy.
It doesn't seem viable to me, but there are believers. There are people who are true believers. And some people who will sign up to be to be the proverbial or literal, should I say, executioner. All right, you got people who believe for sure. I don't understand it. I don't get it, and I don't think we'll ever. I mean, I guess we can surmise, we can theorize as to why people get caught up in these poisonous ideologies, but I mean, they do. I mean, they do. Now, he said that would there ever be a day when there's a level-headed Democrat Party, a more sensible Democrat Party? I don't know. I mean, maybe. I mean, because the Republicans were the radicals in the 1800s. I know that probably makes some loyal Republican voters uncomfortable to hear that today, but the Republicans did a number on our government in the 1860s, 1870s. No doubt about it. No doubt about it. And within a few decades, we saw the likes of Calvin Coolidge and others and things kind of, but the Republicans there's blood on their hands as well, literally and figuratively. A lot of blood, literally and figuratively. But the literally part is what's very crucial. So I don't want to say never. I don't know if I'll see it in my lifetime, because I think the Democrat Party is really dug in on this. I think they are true believers. I think that party is now being steered by fanatics, and I don't know if that will change in my lifetime. I'm not sure, but I doubt it.
They're gonna have to win I think they're gonna have to lose another election before they.
And just to piggyback off of what Chuck was saying about just kind of the history of both parties, the Republicans being the more radical party in the 1800s. This isn't. Excuse me. Excuse me. I have to clear my throat. But people hear that. People might hear Chuck say that and think, well, okay, well, they needed to be radical because slavery was a problem and the South wouldn't have given up their slaves. So you needed the Republicans to be radical because they cared about Black life. They cared about the end of slavery. And this was the reason. No, that wasn't the reason at all. What they wanted was to create a large invisible empire, to the point that Chuck makes in our new documentary, in keeping with the rhetoric of Marx and Engels. That's what they were after. The ending of slavery was a means to this end. So they were more, I guess, zealous for a Marxist ideology than they were for the liberation of the Negro. And I think that's a particular nuance that most people can't quite wrap their heads around. Another thing I would say is, when it comes to the so-called party switch, the reality of it is both the Republican and the Democrat Party were infiltrated by communists in the early 20th century. We saw a more proliferation of communist inroads into the Democrat Party, but it was definitely present in the Republican Party as well. And so with this being said, I would say that, I would share in Chuck's analysis that, you can never say never. But the reality of it is, when you look at the kind of postmodern state of the country that we live in, and how, partisanship, when it comes to partisanship, the modern Democrat Party seeks to kind of continue in that direction, whereas there's members in the Republican Party who either wants to slow it down or stop it or even reverse it. It's difficult to see that kind of that ebb and flow changing anytime soon. But I would say that you can never say never too, because I think what it comes right down to is circumstantial fluctuations that tend to happen over time. There will be the issues that will exist in America 50 years from now, if we're still a country, are very different than the issues that we're currently dealing with. And so when it comes to the changing of hands of power, when it comes to the rising and the falling of different political personalities, who knows where we'll be in the next 50 years with regard to what the Democrat Party represents versus what the Republican Party represents. What they represent is not a constant. It changes over time. And I think we have enough data, information, and historical reality to make a determination of it's not a constant. It changes over time, and it depends on circumstances. I think the civil rights kind of industry that proliferated over the course of the 20th century really gave us an impression of where the modern Democrat and Republican Party is today. And what the civil rights movement was all about was not for the liberation of Black folks. It was a push for Marxism and globalism. That's what it was all about. And so I think as you kind of see this kind of fight for power and this fight for globalism, how different Democrats and Republicans respond to such an agenda will determine what the parties look like in the future. And it can change.
Yeah, and just I want to mention, and Chad made a great point. I probably should leave it there, but just for you guys who are unaware, I mean, you look at a president like Dwight Eisenhower. I mean, he became this political celebrity under FDR. He was a military man during that time. And Dwight Eisenhower, he loved Franklin Delano Roosevelt. And anyone who criticized him or attacked him, I mean, he would really go to the mat for FDR. And at the time in the 1950s, the Republican Party, they were completely on board with this kind of new world order, this new global order in the haze that was the post World War II haze. And Chad mentioned the great Barry Goldwater earlier, and it was Barry Goldwater and some others, because you did have this split in the Republican Party in the 1950s. And the more, I guess you can call it, kind of liberal wing that were really sold and bought in on a lot of the globalist goals or aims at the time. And you had someone like Barry Goldwater leading the push against that. And, we kind of saw the Republican Party sort of change in some ways, thanks in large part to the fearless leadership of someone like a Barry Goldwater. And so it does sort of change over time. It does ebb and flow. We do see that when certain circumstances arise.
I will say too, like, I think we need to be paying attention to the Republican Party. I think we have all these new people who are claiming to be Republican, and I think we need to realize they are not Republican. And so I think we need to be focused. We already kind of know what the Democrats do, and I think we need to be kind of focused on who's up and through what on our side, quote unquote, our side. Because there's a lot of people that is advocating for stuff, and I think if we don't gatekeep a bit, and then we're gonna have some. You think the Rand Paul and Elon, like, you think that's bad? I think in a few years we're gonna be looking at something much worse if we don't control and make sure that the people that we're voting into office are truly Republicans and looking at their history. Anyway, go ahead, Blanche. Sorry.
Chris Creator.
But what is a true Republican, though? I'm sorry. Everything in me said not to ask that question because we got to move on.
Couldn't help it.
And we're already over 2 hours. And by the way, we're not going to be able to get to the LA riot thing maybe next week if it's still in the news. But like, what is it like? Because Keisha, you say that they're not really Republicans. Like, what does that mean?
That means that they don't really hold the principles. They don't really believe in.
Who defines the principles?
We've defined the principles. We've already defined what, because most Republicans were tripping about when Trump took off the abortion thing. Most Republicans, from the party, at the convention. What was another thing? A lot of Republicans are not happy about all this, all the LGBTQ stuff that's coming into the party. There are people that are not happy with the eroding of our principles. Most of us are not happy. We're just like, all right, Trump, like, okay. Like, but the majority of people.
So consensus, so you're saying consensus is what determines what is a true Republican?
Well,
correct?
Well, I think we have said as a party before Trump, I'm talking before Trump, what the things that we believe in, and these were, as far as I know, these things hadn't changed in a pretty long time, like the core things to what we believe in, what we're fighting for. I think Trump has broadened the tent. And I think that broadening, this is all I'm saying, that broadening, we need to gatekeep and try to assess when people are running, particularly when people are running for office, because you can't, you can't, you
that
can't
point,
police
that point's not lost on me. Yeah.
I'm saying the people that run for office, you look back and you try to determine, you be a bit more critical, because we've had this wave of people that come in. So when people start running for office, we need to be looking at their backgrounds a bit more. That's
no, yeah, that point's not lost on me, Keisha. I guess I was more or less asking the question specifically to the piece about when you said they're not really Republican. And my question again to that was like, well, what's really a Republican? Because of the point that Chuck and I were making earlier, we see that there's not really a constant when it comes to partisanship in this country. It's always changing depending on the circumstances. It can be argued that in the advent of McCarthy and then subsequently Goldwater, that the Republican Party became more conservative, and I'd rather it be more conservative than what it was prior to McCarthy and Goldwater. However, I'm aware of the fact that it can easily go extremely left, and I feel like it has gone pretty far left since the days of Goldwater. The Republican Party has, and so like if you're arguing that we should maintain the kind of Goldwater kind of iteration of what the Republican Party was, like I would agree with that. But I guess I would not necessarily push back, but I guess ask the question of, well, what is truly a Republican? Who is that defined by? Is it defined by consensus, or like, is there something that we can look to say that is quintessentially Republican, and that's what it means to be like, just like we can look at the Bible, right, and say what is and what isn't a Christian, what is a true Christian versus what isn't, because you have the text, you have Jesus, who said, I am the way, the truth, of the life. Nobody comes to the Father but by me. If somebody comes along and says, well, I'm a Christian, but I don't exactly follow Christ, nor do I believe that you should exactly follow Christ, we can definitively say, well, no, you're not a Christian then. So what is truly a Republican? And I know I'm philosophizing, I'm getting deep and it's too late in the show for that. But it's just a question, I guess, that I would put to you. But you I think I answered it, so we can move on.
Chris Creative, to finish the wall is $25 billion. The extra border agents and deportation is $64 billion. Illegal immigrants cost the U.S. $150 billion per year. Thank you, Chris. That is true, actually.
Yeah, I think he's talking into well, we don't have to go into it, but yeah, the whole economic piece that we were talking about.
Yeah.
The 25, the extra. Now that I didn't know about the extra border agents. I mean, that makes sense. And I was going to say that too. Like Trump he brags all the time about how he finished a building early and below budget. Like I think, like what we know about Trump, for him to be over. I think there is some kind of a method to his madness. I do. Like, I don't know what's in the man's head, but a lot of the times the things that looked crazy actually kind of work for him. You know what I mean? I don't know.
But like, I mean, I'll be remiss if I don't say there's a difference. I feel like I'm just contrarian, like, if that's a word, this whole show. Like, Keisha, you can't compare the two. Like, there's a difference between running a business and building a building with your own money or with that of investors versus being the president and having the largesse of the taxpayer at hand. And what we've seen happen, even to the most brilliant business minds, once they get in politics and they're dealing with taxpayer money, it's a whole different game. They don't mind passing a big spending bill. They don't mind doing stuff with the taxpayer money. And so for me, it's like, I'm not willing to just kind of, and I know I'm not saying that you are, Keisha, but I'm not willing to say, well, Trump has proven to be a good businessman, finishing jobs on time, under budget. He's going to do the same thing with Washington, D.C. It's a different ball game. It just is.
Well, I'm saying, okay, so when he in his first term, and I'm not trying to, get all into, I know it's late. In his first term, he with oh gosh, now I can't remember, but with steel, like he got a better deal with the steel that he was going to be that we were going to be using to build the wall. He had already had plans, if I remember correctly, to get it done. It was already under the budget that he had already set forth. That's kind of a thing that that means something to Trump. We've seen that particular attention to him giving attention to under budget and on time because he is a builder. I'm talking about building the wall specifically. I'm not talking about any other. I'm saying that's something that he's always kind of touted. I think it's just something that he's proud of. So all I was saying is that I think he's going to continue that. He's 70 something years old. This is like a thing that Trump does. He likes to be under budget. He likes to be, on time. He likes to say, I got this job done under budget and in less time. I don't think we're going to stop seeing that. I'm just saying, I think that's a part of who he is.
But the pushing of a $46 billion bill, which is way over budget,
Mm-hmm.
and the lashing out like a petulant child for people who are acknowledging that it's way over budget, in my opinion, is not in keeping of a so-called brilliant business mind. But that's just me. What do I know? I'm a plumber.
Son of a plumber.
Thank you, Greg Witch. Thank you, Greg Witch, for the super sticker. Chris Creative. Just Obama and Biden are responsible for half of the national debt, 18.5 trillion. At the time, Obama added more than every president before him.
Yeah, he did.
Thank you, Chris Creative. We really appreciate it.
That is true.
Do you think some Christians suffer from a materialistic premise in the sense that causes one to care only about economic issues like regulations on industry and dismiss issues like immigration, free speech, and free press?
I would argue a lot of Christians do. I mean, there's a lot of, and I actually got this term from Keisha a while back, but there's a lot of so-called political Christians out there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the extent of their faith is politics.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I definitely believe that there's a lot of those out there.
A lot of Republicans like that. They shown up they're gonna be religious on the Democrats. Most of them, not for real.
All right, thank you, Mr.
And let me just say too, unless people can misconstrue what I was saying about the whole political Christian thing, do I believe that as a Christian, your faith is supposed to inform how you vote and your political outlook? Yes. What I'm speaking against is people whose faith is exclusive to politics and nothing else, and they believe, so that's basically what I mean.
Yeah,
they put their politics before their faith.
I have a lot of issues with a lot of Christians on the political right today. I got a lot of issues with them, but I don't have time to get into it. I don't want to change the subject, but I just want to put that on the record. I got a lot of problems with them.
All right, thank you, Mr. Lamoa. DT, thank you for the super sticker. Tierra Barnes, God bless the CTTC panel. Thank you, Chad, Keisha, Blanche, Chuck, for another great show. Thank you, Tierra. Will Doc with the super sticker. Thank you so much. Jerome B, God bless the panel and the chat. Thank you so much. Nadija Moore, super sticker. Thank you so much. And that's it.
So once again, thank y'all for rocking with us tonight. We really appreciate it. And this was a really good conversation. Mm-hmm. I think it's fun to disagree because it's a good exercise and, just basically thinking through what our beliefs and opinions are. None of us up here know everything, nor do we claim to know everything. But it's good to have these conversations to kind of get it all out there, because it helps us to think, and I think help us to become better citizens. As the Bible teaches us, we're to be in the world, but not of the world. And so this is the reason why we can disagree, but not make this kind of, a hill that we're going to die on, because we still know at the end of the day, our Redeemer lives, and, we're living on this side of heaven. This is all temporary and it's all fading away. And so my encouragement to all of you who are watching is, to keep the faith, to be an intentional citizen, but don't feel that if you don't get your way politically or otherwise, that, it's just the end, because you have a Redeemer, you have an intercessor who sits at the right hand of God. And so please go into the description and follow the people you see up here: Miss Keisha King Benton, Chuck Littleton, Blanchard Robinson. Please contribute to their platforms. Please like and subscribe to this channel and to theirs. And until next time, we love you all, and God bless. Thank you for watching.